Claudia Gazzini. She's a senior analyst for Libya at the International Crisis Group and joins me now from Tunisia's capital, Tunis. Claudia, thanks for joining us on the News Hour. What do you make of these ongoing discussions? Has there been any forward movement?
Well, these discussions that are taking place in Geneva today are supposed to be the culmination of a constitutional review process that has been going on for months. There's hope in Libya that they will bear fruit. My assessment is very negative. I don't think we will have an agreement, a real substantial agreement on the constitutional framework, which is supposed to be the first step towards an agreement on the elections. What we might see is a sort of pro forma piece of paper signed with a broad sort of commitment to something, but in substance, the rival factions still disagree on what elections need to happen, what are the criteria for who's running as a candidate, and most importantly, those who are today in Geneva supposedly negotiating and putting the final touches to the agreement are individuals, and behind them others, who don't see the need really to embark on elections. They are essentially fine with the status quo, but it's an explosive status quo in Libya.
Well, how's the war in Ukraine that's been playing out since February impacting the political and security situation in Libya?
Well, the war has had three sort of direct impacts, I think. On the financial level, on the economic level, it has certainly, like in many other countries, triggered an increase in prices. Bread is more expensive, basic commodities are more expensive, and people are suffering the consequences of this. Secondly, there is a political consequence to the war in Ukraine because, as you know, and as your viewers know, Libya now has two rival governments. One of them, the one appointed by the parliament, headed by Fatih Bashaga, is backed by the East-based military coalitions, who happens to be also backed by Russia. And Russia is the only country that gave sort of official recognition to this government. So Western countries and others have taken a step back and have have not recognized this government, in part because of this growing animosity with Russia. So there has been a direct political consequence on that. And militarily also, now with the war in Ukraine, European countries for sure, and the US, NATO countries are, of course, looking with great skepticism and fear at the Russian presence in Libya. As you know, there is not direct military presence from Moscow. It's private military contractors of the Wagner Group who also operate in Libya, allegedly alongside the Haftar-led forces. So now, whereas there was some complacency by Western countries on the presence of Wagner in Libya with the war in Ukraine, there's increasing agitation about this ongoing military presence in the country.
And Claudia, everything though seemed really on track for elections to be held at the end of last year in Libya. How did it all go so wrong?
Well, it was a deception, this idea that everything was on track. Nothing was on track. There had been controversies over the electoral law leading up to the elections, and there were disputes between electoral candidates. But essentially, the reason why this end of December election collapsed seemingly at the last minute, even though it was a tragedy, a foretold tragedy, was because there were disagreements on who was allowed to run for president. Essentially, in Libya, there's this winner-take-all mentality. So everybody who's running for president, first of all, thinks that they will win, and second of all, thinks that then once in the seat, they can do as they please. And I think the leading candidates who were Haftar, Dbeiba himself, the current prime minister, Fatih Bashaga, now the current rival prime minister, and Saif al-Islam, the son of the late leader Muammar Gaddafi, all thought that they stood a chance in winning, and this created sort of a Mexican standoff where nobody wanted the other to win. So that's why the elections collapsed, and that's why we're in a new political crisis now in Libya.
Claudia Gazzini, thank you so much for explaining that so well to us, speaking to us there from Tunisia.